All set.
Thank you very much. Do you have anybody else waiting to come in yet?
Nope, we're all set.
We're all here? All right. So good afternoon, Madam Secretary. If you want to give us a little bit of a report of what you're looking for, but mostly we've been asking questions. I'm not certain how many people are coming on from questions. I think they're all preparing for our 225 person public hearing tonight. So go ahead. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I am Denise Merrill, the Secretary of the State of Connecticut, and I'm here to testify for the couple of things that we have asked for in the budget. I will be very brief because I submitted written testimony and you have seen these items before. So in very brief order, we have asked for two things. We need a comprehensive voter education campaign, and I don't need to tell anyone on this call why. There have been lots of changes in the rules in the last couple of years with COVID, and there's some confusion out there. There's redistricting that's coming along, could change people's polling places. In 2020, we had some federal funding to do a comprehensive campaign of this sort. The $2 million we're requesting will largely be used to fund a media campaign. And, I have a budget for all that, which I will submit. The other item is $150,000 to hire an election information security analyst. Again, we had money during 2020 from the federal government to identify mis and disinformation related to election administration before it starts to spread. This is a national move we have partners, federal partners like the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and others, including many, many secretaries of state, where we can report to them if we see any kind of mis or disinformation about elections. So we need this position to continue, at least for this coming couple of years, to make sure that we continue to combat the election security issues we've seen in the past. And I just want to say one more thing, which is I'm very proud of the job we did in 2020 against tremendous odds. We did have the resources to do what we needed to do, and I hope we can continue that in 2022. So with that being said, I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Does anybody have any questions for the Secretary?
If I could just ask a question. Yesterday, in planning for this hearing, there were some questions. Are you ready to break down what the $2 million is going to be used for as far as a public education campaign, how it will be used? I see you have some handouts with this showing you some different scenarios. Can you give us a better idea of how that money is going to be used?
We'll be happy to submit an entire budget. Most of it is probably for television. It is the most expensive of the medias. And this would not even include media for Fairfield County, because Fairfield County is so expensive to do television because they largely listen to New York markets. But yes, we have a complete budget, which I'd be happy to submit. We have to kind of give you a ballpark at this point because it will depend on, the buys that we make at the time.
I think somebody also had a question about providing funding to mitigate election misinformation, and they were concerned about how misinformation would be defined. So you might want to refine that definition of or do you already have an idea of how you're going to define misinformation?
Yes. Well, let me tell you what it's not. It is not anything to do with political speech, policy proposals, fact-checking candidates or claims, or any protected political speech. It is election administration related topics only. So I'll give you some examples of some of the things that our contractor found last year when we were trying to report these things. We had people saying ballots marked with Sharpies aren't counted, for example. That is not true. And we had to very quickly try to inform the public that these things were not true. And we also needed to report some of these things that were deliberately misleading people into thinking, for example, that their polling place wasn't where they should be, or, a truck overturned on the highway. That was another one, spilling thousands of ballots. People are running around collecting the ballots. That was also just not true. And these sorts of things, particularly on election day or on election night, can cause a lot of panic. We have found that a lot of it is coming from foreign countries, foreign bots. And so we just need to identify those things and report them to the proper authorities before they spread, which they spread like wildfire, God knows. But we can kind of nip it in the bud, if you will. And we're working, like I say, with a lot of federal and state level partners on this effort.
Anything else, Representative Ryan?
Thank you.
Representative Dathan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Secretary, for your comments today, and thank you for your service over the years. It's been phenomenal. I'm very much interested in your business registration and filings. Do you have information about how many newly businesses have been formed in the state of Connecticut in 2021?
Well, we can get that information. I would caution you that a lot of it is difficult to parse out to make it meaningful. We report that every year. Business starts and stops. In fact, I think we do it monthly, actually. And
Yeah,
I think most of it is online. Right.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but we can certainly get that for you.
Yeah, just wanted to see the trends. And also, I'd love to hear about initiatives that your office is doing to facilitate efforts for businesses. I know that there are, state of Connecticut systems that are trying to make one-stop shops for businesses to have access to all the things that they need to get their businesses launched. And just would love to hear a little bit more about how that's evolved. And I know there's been some systems upgrades in that.
Oh, we have a lot to tell you about that. We're very
Great.
proud of it. We are the
Thank
first
you.
office that launched our business one stop. It's the first building block of a business one stop, which was a redo of the old, what we called the Concord system, which is the business registration registry. And it is incredible now. It's a brand new system. We just launched it a couple of months ago. Very robust. You can do much more searching by anyone who goes online. And it's going to be ultimately a login system throughout the state. So we worked with DAS on the ground floor on that effort. And it's remarkable how fast we're moving on some of this. It's been languishing for years. But thank you for asking. Happy to tell you all about it. We love it. We love talking about it because it's a great effort.
Yeah, if you have some information you can bring to the work group, that would be
Great.
really great. And thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Dathan. Anybody else have any questions? Are you going to be putting information out on the ballot initiative too?
That will be part of our effort, yes, to make sure that people understand that it's there. Again, that's part of the effort that we'll do with the public information campaign. That's right.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Does anybody else have any questions? Seeing none, Madam Administrator? See, you were quick and easy.
Good to be back. Nice to see you all.
Nice to see you too. We have a 2:30 contracting standards board. I think that because there's so much interest in it, I hate to start early. So can we'll take a little recess until 2:30.
Okay.
All right.
That's
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody come back at 2:30.
Lauren, are you on the call? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Did you get my note about when you scheduled the work group that it's the same day we're having session in the House?
Yes, I did not schedule that. I'm going to talk to Chris about that because I wasn't sure how that was going to be handled, but I did get it. I will get back to you, I promise.
Because obviously we can't be there if we're in session. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Working on it, Representative Ryan. You want to?
I'm amazed you let that go by you, Suki. I'm really kind of surprised.
Do you want us to log off and come back, or do you want us just to? Okay.
No, you don't need to just silence yourself. That way you can David.
Hi,
Chris,
Senator.
how are you?
I
I
am
just
well.
wanted to let, I'm good too. I just wanted to let you know that the secretary ended early, so we're gonna start back up at 2:30. So that's why we're letting you all early, but we're not really gonna start anything.
Actually,
So-
I saw you on YouTube, so I'm up to date.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Good, because there is some interest in this, and so I don't want to start early and then people are not listening.
Understandable.
So at 2:30, I'll be back. I'm on another meeting at the same time. I think I might be on YouTube a lot of times today. I don't know. Thank you. Craig Binder, behave yourself wherever you are. Sue, if you want to start recording, that would be fine. You're muted. Thank you. Oh, no.
Kathy, just give me a moment. Everything got
Yep.
screwed up because of the other subcommittee. So Taylor, I need you to get out and go and try and start transportation and let me know what happens.
Got it.
Because it won't let me open it, okay?
Okay.
All right, so now we are going to start recording.
Thank you, Sue. So good afternoon, everybody. This is the Appropriations Committee budget briefing relative to the State Contract Standards Board. We did have the Secretary of the State before this. David, are you or Larry, who is going to give a little briefing on this?
Larry
Larry?
will, Madam.
Okay, thank you very much. Larry, if you could introduce the board so we know who's on the board, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. We have, in addition to myself, 5 members of the board here today. Al Ilg, who is a longtime town manager from the town of Windsor on the board. Albert Aline, who's ran a large accounting and auditing firm in Connecticut for many, many years. Bruce Buff, who spent a whole career in procurement with the U.S. Navy nuclear program, with big corporation, City of Hartford for a while. Lauren Gauthier is on here somewhere. At least, yeah, I see her. She's on audio, who does contracting at Electric Boat. And Bob Rinker, who's a longtime, now retired executive director of the CSCA in Connecticut, plus myself.
Thank you, Larry. And I know people are going to have questions for you, but if you could just say, what does the governor's proposal do to the State Contracting Standards Board?
Well, I think it's fair to say that it effectively ends the board as it was envisioned. There would still be a board, but the core mission of the board, which was to be able to take real-time remedial action, investigation, monitoring, and accountability around contracting and procurement, would effectively be gone under not only the lack of funding, which is we've struggled with forever, but now in terms of authority. It would basically say that if we see any problems, we should just refer it over to the auditors and they'll take a look at it. So it's ironic that that proposal is coming today in view of everything that we're reading in the newspapers. And what's particularly saddening to me, and I think other members of the board, is that we actually have the tools in the law that, had we implemented those tools, could have prevented what we're going through today.
Thank you for that. And can you sort of, for people who don't know how long this has been around, say what you're looking for in the budget for positions, please?
Sure. We're actually asking in the budget for 5 more positions, which is what we actually think we would need to carry out the mission that you intended us to carry out. The first most important is a chief procurement officer, who would basically be the person that brings at the staff level. We have a lot of procurement expertise on the board level, but at the staff level would bring the expertise to really look at procurement and contracting. Then we need a staff attorney, because there's a lot of times when we're actually in quasi legal situations, and we are not always able to get the assistance from the Attorney General. In fact, most times the Attorney General, when we ask for assistance says they can't provide it, they're too busy. We need an accounts examiner to look sort of, that's like the auditing piece of it. We need a research analyst because a lot of what we're doing in real time is looking at what's going on in these procurements and contracting. And we need a trainer to help train the procurement people that are doing that function in the agencies of state government. The total cost of it is really small. And if I can just say,
Larry, just so you know, somebody needs to text Lauren Gauthier. She can't get on. She's going to have to sign off and sign back on again. She's trying to connect to the audio and it's not getting through. But I don't happen to have her contact information if anybody does.
David will help with that.
Thank you.
I would just say for the Appropriations Committee, because I read sometimes in the press that people see us as a duplication. And I just want to say, we don't do any procurement. That's not our role. It was never intended to be our role. We monitor, we hold accountable the agencies that do procurement. And that's why we don't need a big staff, but we need an effective staff to look at what's going on.
I apologize, Larry. I had two different, I was trying to get somebody else to run another meeting. So we've talked about the positions, we've talked about the governor's proposal. And can you address the comments that have been made relative to this would stop all privatization in the state? My understanding is that's not your, that's not even what you're considering in any circumstance. Could you just talk about that for a second, please?
I don't know why. I don't know that. I don't know what to say about that. We actually, I'm trying to think. Currently, there's one matter pending before the board, before the privatization committee, a small matter. And I actually recused myself from it because it's a claim by 1199 New England, and I have a past affiliation with that organization. So I actually don't know what's going on with it. No, I mean, there's a process to do privatization, and it's been on the books for a long time, and it involves what any organization would do if they were seeking to privatize. They would do a cost benefit analysis to determine whether this is something that we'd be better off doing on the outside. And the statute has some, is it a core government function? Is it really going to be more effective to do it on the outside? But we actually don't have, other than this one very small case, we don't have any cases before us.
All right, thank you. I have a couple of people that have questions. Representative Dathan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And it's nice to see you back here again this year. This is the fourth year I've listened to the need for increasing the size, and it is a little concerning that we haven't kind of followed this. I'm wondering if you can give some maybe some background on what other states do to achieve the sort of goals that we're trying to achieve with the Contracting Standards Board. Because it's my understanding that the public auditors of accounts don't do some of the work that you're talking about undertaking. So how do other states do it?
Yeah, in addition, let me just address this auditor's question too, because we have a good relationship with the auditors, but we actually we don't do the same thing. And it's real important for the legislature to really understand. There's over 100 auditors working now in the public auditors of public accounts. And they really mostly are looking at what's been going on in these agencies, but they don't ask the kinds of questions, and we've met with them and we talk. And by the way, under the current law 4E-6, we can work with the auditors. We don't need a law change to work with them. And if they need more staff, they should have more staff. I'm all for it. But they're not going to do real-time investigation, remedial action. They don't have those tools. In terms of other states, I'm not actually sure what the enforcement bodies are in other states. So I can't really speak to that. What I could speak to is what we think the best practices are in other states with procurement and contracting itself. And the states that we've looked at that seem to do the best job have a centralized function for actually doing procurement, because most of our agencies in the state, not all of them, but most of them don't have the resources to do procurement and contracting right. It is unfortunate right now that actually the emerging allegations that are going on in the news right now are not at the small contracting agencies. They're actually at the agencies at the top of the procurement and contracting process, both DAS and OPM, and that's very distressing and should be of great concern to us, because they should be providing guidance to the other agencies, and the allegations that are circulating now in the press are extremely serious about a perversion of that role if those allegations are true. And we actually have the tools to look at that right now on the books. We just don't have the staff. And it is disturbing to me, frankly, because I do think that the best practice is not to have procurement and contracting dispersed across agencies. The best practices in other states do centralize it. So when the centralizing agencies are suspect, we don't have another solution except they need oversight. They need oversight. That's why they need this. That's why you need that. That's why we have the board. Because when they do something wrong, it is of much more consequence than if a small agency does it, because when they do something wrong, it affects everybody. So it's particularly disturbing to me that the Undersecretary for Legislative Affairs at OPM, who sits on the board of the Connecticut Port Authority, in a meeting this fall, a public meeting, says, and I quote, "We don't actually think the Contracting Standard Board needs to exist, and we will continue to have that posture." In view of the allegations going on right now that are actually centered at OPM, it's scary to me, and it should be scary to all of us.
Thank you, Larry.
You for just to kind of make a comment. It seems like in so many other parts of our agencies, we've centralized things, including the HR function, the IT center, centralizing that. And it just seems to me that this seems like a way that would really facilitate the saving of money and resources and state employees if we have this. So I tend to agree with you, and I appreciate your comments today. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Larry, good to have you back. I feel like deja vu in our conversation. So I'm trying to understand if in fact the board is going to be done away with, which I believe is how you started. Is that correct?
Well, it's not going to be done away with. it just won't be able to effectively do what it was asked to do at all. I don't know why people would serve on the board. Yeah, I mean, because if we don't have the power to investigate, it's not, we haven't had the resources it had in the past, but we have with the dedication of a lot of our board members, we've been able to do some investigations anyway, most recently with the Port Authority. But basically the proposal that's currently on the table, both in terms of funding and in the accompanying Senate Bill 9, Section 6, basically says anytime we have an issue, we should just give it to the auditors. They'll investigate it. And from that, from my money, that actually means that there's no chance of us being effective.
So Representative Wilson, just to clarify, right now we're responding to the governor's budget, and in the governor's budget, it gives the work to 3 auditors who don't do the same work that they do. There are other bills that are around all over the place, one in the Appropriations Committee, to fully fund the Contracting Standards Board, but we are responding right now to just the governor's bill, which does not fully fund the Contracting Standards Board. But there are other bills out there to do that. So I just wanted to make that clear that we are only responding right now to his piece of legislation. We will have raised bills that deal with this also. So just so you know, under the governor's plan, it is to put 3 auditors in who do not do the work that they do. So effectively, they would be disbanded. They would still have a voluntary board, but they would not have the staff currently under the current proposal in the governor's budget to do the work that needs to be done. I just wanted to clarify that.
So help me understand, is this a chicken and the egg scenario? In other words, if the board is disbanded, then why do we need to make an approval in the budget for funds?
The board wouldn't be disbanded. The board would still be there. Instead of putting the staff under the board would, the governor's proposal is not to get rid of the board. The governor's proposal is not to give them the resources to do the investigations that they are required to do by state statute. That has been the position under Governor Rell, under Governor Malloy, and under Governor Lamont. It's just that he took an action last year when we finally had the resources to put into the Contracting Standards Board to remove that funding. And so that's what's going on here. And so I don't know if that makes sense to you, sir.
It's very confusing, and I'm trying to understand why this is the track that we're going down, when in my view it makes sense to allow them to continue what they're doing and consider funding them as they've requested for year after year that I've been on this committee. So I guess I'll just shut up and listen. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
So to be very clear, that's the governor's proposal. That is not the legislature's proposal. And we have put money in year after year after year and tried to get this funded year after year after year. And governor after governor says, no way. So it's not, that's why we need to resolve this issue this year. And there are other bills out there that we can all talk about at some point, but I agree with you. We should fully fund the board. So you're all set, Representative?
Yeah, I'm just going to listen now.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kushner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Larry, it's good to see you here today. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I have some trouble with my computer. It's okay. Okay, good. So I am concerned about the way or the lack of funding for the board. And I'm also concerned about the authority of the board and whether or not the authority in any way was diminished recently, or whether, aside from what you've already mentioned, not having resources obviously diminishes the authority of the board because you don't have the people to do the work that needs to get done. So I understand that completely. But I did ask the question of Secretary McCaw when she presented the budget. I asked about the fact that this was moving to the auditors, 3 positions, and did that affect the authority? Her answer was no, not at all. The board would still have, this is what I recall, but the board would still have the authority, but they would have to be, this was meant to help the board because it was going to give them access to resources that they've been asking for. I think our auditors do a great job, by the way, and I'm very, thankful that we have a strong internal auditing department, and I think the people that run that are great. But as you pointed out, they don't do the work that you do. They look retrospectively at contracts and make sure that everything was spent correctly and handled correctly, as opposed to looking at prospective contracts that could be damaging to the state. And that's your function. I am really deeply concerned about it. I'm happy Senator Austin has made clear that there's a bill in appropriations to fully fund. I think there are other bills scattered around. Labor Committee is not raising a bill, but we are watching all this carefully. I think I'm mostly concerned, and I haven't felt that I've gotten an answer. Why, if you know, or if there was any discussion with you or any members of the board, why did the governor decide to put the resources into auditing to help you rather than to hire people under your authority?
Well,
If I could just, I'd hate to have anybody on the board say what was in the mind of the governor.
yeah.
I just don't, I think that's a
Well,
question for the governor.
I did ask if you had conversations about it, which is
Yeah.
I mean, what I agree with Senator Austin that that's really a question for the governor. What I do know, however, and I want to stress that we have a good relationship with the auditors, and the current statute 4E6 gives us the ability to work together. But we do very different things. Let me just give you one example that the board uncovered. Auditors are embedded in all the big state agencies all the time, and they're working very hard. So we did a report that came out a few years ago. And by the way, the data was before the Lamont administration, which showed that on personal service contracts, which is a couple of $1 billion of contracts that the state does, it's not small amounts of money. Over 70% of them were sole sourced. They were not competitively bid. I'm sure the auditors looked at them and said, well, did you get the waiver? Oh, yes, we got the waiver. We got the sign off. OPM was giving out waivers like chocolate bars on Halloween. We said, this is our board using volunteers, many of whom Alberto Lean was centered this whole research project. He said, no. We're supposed to do competitive bidding in this state. This needs to change. It's really bad. It's expensive. It discriminates against minority and women contractors because when you sole source, they never get in the game. There are all kinds of problems with it. But I don't doubt that all of them had the proper sign off to get the sole source. It's just it's a different function. It's sort of related, but it's just a different function.
Senator Kushner.
Yeah, I guess, when I look at the budget sheet that includes reference, it's page 11, I believe, that includes of the Office of Government Accountability. It says Contracting Standards Board actual for fiscal year 20 was 167,231. Fiscal year 21 was 175,000. And then governor estimated for 22 and 23, it goes up to the 624,994. Is that is that the money that is being used to hire the 3 people under the?
No. No, the 624 is what it would cost, but for the executive director, and then adding the 5 positions that we put into in addition to that. So it's not about the money. It's not about the money. They don't want us to. And the scary part about the language, in addition to not funding us, which is bad enough, is that they're basically saying to the board, don't do investigations, because we have board members. We'll do the investigations ourselves if a complaint comes in. It's hard, and they're really saying no, just turn it over to these auditors. Turn it over to the auditors. They don't want the oversight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very much. Senator Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, this may come as a shock to Senator Kushner, but I agree with her kind of analysis that while they may appear to be similar, they are distinctly different functions. One occurs on the front end, and the other occurs on the back end in terms of an audit, and it kind of tells you what happened. Following on with Senator Kushner's question about money that was allocated, was there a restriction on hiring people with that money being allocated in the budget?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Basically, the money was lapsed. We basically, in the implementer bill last session, the money was withdrawn from, so the positions weren't. I don't think, David, they created the positions as a result of that.
Senator Minor, David Gay speaking, the executive director. What happened is you did fund the board in that amount of $674,000.
Right,
But the implementation bill then rescinded it for the 2 years of
Correct.
fiscal 22 and 23. So in one hand it was given, and then one hand it was rescinded and taken away. And I must make a note, when we're talking about the board authority, Senate Bill 9, which is the current implementer for general government, actually strips the board of much of its authority. And more so, even if I may speak about how auditors, the auditors of public accounts are more like an outside auditor. They come in and they take a look and they make these recommendations. And the business or the agency may decide to accept them or not accept them. And in fact, many of those findings revolve year in and year out. Why is that? Because there's 2 different branches of government. The auditors can't make the executive branch do something. We are an executive branch agency with powers to make other agencies do something. By actually funding 3 more auditors, it does nothing for the board at all.
Right.
At all. I agree with Larry. They should have more auditors. I agree. The auditors, they do a wonderful job. We work wonderfully with them. But the fact is, we're talking about, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but we're talking about separation of government here, legislative branch and executive branch. So this proposal has many facets that are troubling.
Well, I know that we have had, at least at the leadership level, an early on conversation in the Appropriations Committee. There are many requests before us, but I would say to you that I think there is a significant level of commitment to try and straighten this out, especially knowing that there's a lot at stake for the administration, especially the timing of the budget and the appearance of this language is most troubling. So I'm kind of looking forward to our opportunity to conclude these kind of conversations, these budget discussions with people that do the hard work for the state of Connecticut, and see if we can't really put a firewall up between those that are charged with trying to make sure that agreements are in the best interest of the state, no matter who they go to make sure that as Larry was saying, you know, they probably had the proper sign-offs. The audit would show that they had the sign-offs. But the question for the public really is, are the sign-offs appropriate? I mean, for the last probably 10 years, we've been talking about work being available to certain populations. And if that's been the mechanism to swiftly get around making sure there's a diverse opportunity, then that's also unfortunate. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to unravel what I hope was just a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Minor. Are there any other questions? So I just wanted to say, David, that there's the bill that's currently in, and I'm hoping that you all come and testify on it, is to fully fund the Contracting Standards Board, but to move it over to legislative management with the same authorities that it has under legislative management. And whether it's a firewall that we put around it in the executive branch, or it moved over to legislative management with the legislative branch with the authorities to look at this, is the question that we presented to the lawyers, because we have to figure this out. Because it does no good for us to continue to put the money in and either not have the positions filled and the funding is lapsed, or to require that the money come out of the budget. That doesn't, it's the same conversation we've been having since, quite frankly, since the board was first initiated, and it's now risen to the level of us having some rather big contracts that have questions that we all would like answers to. So just so you know that that's where it is right now. I think GAE is looking at this also, but I know Appropriations is looking at this. And that's the question that we have. Can we put it under legislative management so it will remain fully funded? If we can, and you remain with the same powers, then we'll do that, because that makes it a little bit easier. Or do we have to build, as Senator Minor talked about, a firewall around this particular organization? So those are the options to us right now, but that bill will be heard sometime in March, I do believe. Senator Kushner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The other part of this that I think has been mentioned, I'm not clear about, is the authority of the board. And Senator Austin, you just mentioned the importance of preserving the authority of the board. And I would like to hear more. I mean, funding the board makes sense if you have the authority to do the job that we believe you should be doing. So if you could elaborate a little bit on what you think or what your understanding is of Senate Bill 9, and whether or not it restricts any of your authorities farther than it has been, other than the funding part, other than the resource part. Are there anything else we should be aware of in terms of the way that was written that might cause concern?
Yeah, there's two. There are two things that I would draw your attention to in it. First of all, on line 263 of Senate Bill 9, where it basically says 4E4 is repealed and substituted as follows. That's of concern. And then specifically on line 355, there's a new subsection L, and which says refer a contractor. It's saying what our responsibility is. And it says refer a contractor, procurement of state contracting agency to the auditors of public accounts for any deficiencies. That's the end of us. That's the end of us being able to do independent investigation. And let me just say, our experience when we need help from other, like when we need help from the AG, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. When we get a complaint that comes in, we need to do it right away. We need to look into it right away. and we're looking at different things than the auditors might otherwise look at. So I think L specifically needs to come out. And I don't know what else repeal and replace on 4E4 means, but I'm concerned about that as well.
Thank you. That's what I was asking about, and I'll take a closer look at that. Thank you so much.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Alrighty, everybody. So I think that you've given us some food for thought. We really appreciate you coming on. We appreciate the work you've done. And for the rest of my colleagues, we do have a very long public hearing tonight about that. We're now up to 235 people. And so we're going to have different people act as chairs at different times so that we can share the wealth. So look forward to starting the meeting, and let's see where we are. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.